Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. Pretty much going to lesson 6 today. Per usual, there's two QR codes in the corner. One of them is for my friends, Dr. Phones. It kind of helped me get my setup back up. They're good friends of mine. And then the Lotus Creek is pretty much for my. You can go out and see some of my artwork at the shop. They recently just moved, so if you don't see my artwork up, just pretty much just ask Mr. James. I just did a video in the shop a couple of days ago. I need to stop by and just check out the new digs. So we already talked about drawing in 1, 2, and 3-point perspectives, and we already touched a little bit on the importance of breaking items down to their primal shapes, which is squares, circles, and triangles. So today what I want to go into is we already drawn boxes in 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. Now let's go ahead and move to circles and spheres. So let's go ahead and get rolling for today for lesson 6. Okay, per usual, most of what you'll be needing for this is going to be paper, pencil, and a ruler or hard edge. This right here, I got this at the local dollar store. There were 3 for $1. You can't beat that. And if you mess it up, you're fine. Say not a big deal. All right, so before we get going, let's go ahead and start reviewing what we've covered so far. Okay, we already know, and this is Anna's cheat sheet. Okay, if it's in 1-point perspective, you're dealing with a square, anything going vertical and horizontal is not affected by the vanishing point. However, anything at an angle, it is. All right. If you have an item in 2-point perspective, anything going vertical is not affected, but anything going horizontal at an angle, it is affected because it pretty much morphs into one. Now, any item that is in 3-point perspective is affected by all 3 of the vanishing points. As you can see right here, here's the example. Vertical, horizontal, not affected. Anything in angle, it is. Anything going vertical, not affected. Anything going horizontal or at an angle, it is affected. And anything in 3-point perspective, all sides are affected. And these are some of the examples. Let me go back to 1-point perspective. We already talked about this in 1-point perspective. This is the only time you will only be exposed to one plane when you're dealing with the box. Okay, and this is 1-point perspective on the horizon line in the center. So think of like a shipping container or a box right in front of you. If you're staring right at it, you're going to be exposed to a plane, just a single plane. Anything past it, you're going to be exposed to 2 or 3, and this is in 1-point perspective. In 2-point perspective, you're always going to be exposed to at least 2 planes as long as it's in the horizon line. And the second you push the item above the horizon line or below the horizon line, the item, you're going to be exposed to a 3rd plane. And then right here, this is some of the examples from the last lesson where we did 3-point perspective, where we pretty much you want to use it for like more extreme and more dynamic views. I always suggest people to look into comics. Comics are a great way. They use 1, 2, and 3-point perspective a lot. So this is just some quick examples of some of the past lessons that we have done. All right, so let's go ahead and start moving forward in today's lesson, where we're going to start drawing spheres or cylindrical items in perspective. Okay. Now, when you look at a sphere, okay, so there's 2 things. You have squares, you have triangles. So technically, hold on, let me go back here. Brain fart. So squares, triangles, and circles. So from here, you have subcategories, which kind of like a cube, rectangles. Okay, and then you can just kind of keep going with that. From here, you pretty much get into cones. If you go more in 3D, so this is 2D, 3D. Okay, from here, you go into a sphere. And I know it looks exactly the same because if you're dealing with a perfect sphere, no matter which way you look at it, it looks like a sphere. So the only difference is that you pretty much elaborate on that by adding some shading on it. And then the other thing that you have is a flat circular plane. Or oval, or a flat oval. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into those. So let's talk about the anatomy of a cylinder. So today, that's mostly what I want to talk about is the cylinder. So you have the body, just think of a toilet paper roll. Okay, you have the body, and then you have the end caps. And depending on what you're drawing, you might not even need these end caps. Okay, so cylinders come in handy when you're drawing things such as like fingers, hands. A lot of organic things use cylinders, so it's one of those things that's it's a really good idea to become familiarized with them. So for the first exercise, I want to teach you guys how to kind of sort of draw a perfect circle. If you don't happen to have, like, I know a lot of people, hey, just use like a bottle cap or whatever, but what if you don't have a bottle cap on you? So let's go ahead and just quickly draw. Oh, my apologies. I should not. Thought I shut everything off. Ugh. Okay, there we go. That's shut off. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw a circle or a planar. Okay, so the way you want to do this is you want to draw a perfect box as best as you can. So for the sake of sanity, we're going to go for 1 inch. Do 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And again, this comes in handy. This is going to make sense here a lot in a second. Okay, so you're going to draw yourself. I'm going to push the camera in. Okay, so you're going to draw yourself a basic square. Now, if you really look at a circle, if you actually look at a circle, and I were to draw a square about it, you're going to see that the majority of the mass, so you have 4 points where these are your extreme points, and then you have some dead zones right here. If I were to fit this into a box, this is pretty much what it looks like. So, understanding this basic premise, I'm going to go right here. If this is around 1 inch or one segment, I'm going to divide this into half. The top and the bottom. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. Just enough to just kind of get the lesson. Okay, it's about 1/2 inch. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lightly draw these lines. I know this is not very perfect, but that's okay though. Again, this is just for educational purposes. Okay, so now we have our quadrants. Okay, so from here, what I want to do is simply go ahead and draw a curve from the top of the circle to the bottom of the circle, and I'll show you. So I'm going to carefully, so this is the top of the circle. Okay, and that gives me the upper corner. Then I'm going to repeat that again. And why is this important? It will make a lot of sense here in a little bit. So this gives me my extreme points on my circle. You curve, these are your max points, so it kind of gives you a point of reference. There we go. And now we have drawn a flat planar circle inside a box. Now this seems kind of silly, but let me tell you how this comes into play. Okay, so this is how to draw basic circle without a template. So this is one lesson right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the next part. So now I'm going to use that perspective thing that I've been talking about. So for the sake of sanity, I'm just going to make this 4 inches wide. I'm going to put the halfway point. So my vanishing point is going to be right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating myself a reference line. So let's say this item is on the floor. So I'm going to start myself with, let's say half an inch line down here. Okay, using my vanishing point, let me put the sphere on the side. My desk is kind of tilted down. Okay, so this gives me my starting point. Now from here, I already determined this is about 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to kind of go out. I'm just going to, for right now, I'm just going to do 1/2 inch. Like I said, this is trial and error. I keep modifying these tutorials in my head as I go through. And I'm just going to do another 1/2 inch. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. Okay, so half an inch, half an inch, half an inch. So from here to here, half an inch. Now this will kind of obviously won't be half an inch. It's going to be a little bit bigger, and that is okay. Now that we have that, we need to find the halfway point. So if this is half an inch, let's find a quarter of an inch on both sides. This is too much math. Don't worry, it'll make sense at some point. Now for here, for this one, I'm just gonna find my other side, my other midpoint, using the vanishing point. Okay, so I found this my halfway point from left to right. And if I sound crazy, that's okay. Okay, this is really light. Then I'm gonna go this right here. And it seems like a lot of measuring, but if you especially if you're trying to do something more how do you say, more accurate, this is the way to do it. So now we're borrowing what we did here with the circle, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to replicate that here. And it's going to look kind of ovalish because this side right here is further away from us. So this point is further away from us. This is closer to us. There we go. We have now drawn a plane circle in 1 point perspective. And you can just kind of keep practicing these. So I'm going to repeat myself. Half an inch. I'm going to use my vanishing point. Give myself half an inch. Remember, anything vertical and horizontal is not affected. That still carries at this point, but anything at an angle is. Okay, let's do half. Now you guys know why artists are a little crazy, because this is our thought process right here. We're constantly breaking things down in our heads, and we tend to be very observant. Okay, so now we got the plane there, and we're gonna repeat. So we know these are furthest points. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 furthest point. We're just gonna draw a curve from there to there, a curve from here to here, and you want to leave that dead space in the corner. That is important. Again, this is not the know all buy all, but this is just a good way that I've been able to, if I'm trying to draw, like, I don't know, pipes coming down from, like, let's say this is some sewage. Like, this is a city. And I just do a real life example. See, it was like some Blade Runner looking thing. And let's give this some thickness. And let's say there's some water coming out of here. So by using these basic building blocks, you are literally, you can build almost any environment that you want. But by understanding these basic concepts, you can pretty much just create any environment, just to make it look dynamic. Sorry, sometimes I can't speak and draw at the same time. Like my brain has like nope. Okay, and let's do one more pipe over here. This is just me just kind of showing you an example how you can grab that basic cylinder and then build it out to be something else. And I'm gonna try to throw these at you so you guys can see, because I know this stuff can seem kind of boring sometimes, guys. I call this stuff sometimes the broccoli of art. And I mean like steamed broccoli of art. Like no butter, no cheese, just steamed broccoli. Anyway, but that kind of gives you an idea. There's some guy standing up here looking over. I am the night, or whatever. He's sewage man with the power of sewage. Ugh. Ugh. Sounds so gross. Redact that, please. But anyway, so this just kind of gives you an idea that, by breaking down these shapes into very like little, just kind of, and this is the thing about art. It's all about breaking this down to simple shapes and then building it back up. So in this situation, I kind of want to do like a sewage scene, and I wanted to add these pipes that are oozing out. Maybe this is like some factory, or there's some secret ooze or something. So I simply went ahead and I set up my vanishing point, excuse me, my horizon line, my vanishing point, and then just by using some of the basic stuff that we learned, I was able to build a brand new environment using that. Um, okay, now let's go ahead and continue. Let's go ahead and continue talking about this. Okay, now when you're dealing with a cylinder, I'm gonna do two. When you're dealing with a cylinder, depending on where you are in relation to the horizon line or the midpoint of your stage, it's going to affect how your item looks like. So if you have a perfect cylinder and you can see the top of it, let's do the coffee mug thing. Okay? So if you see the inside of your coffee, you're looking down on it. But if you actually look at your object directly, so let's say this is my eye, and I'm looking directly at this coffee mug, which is a cylinder, it kind of looks almost like a square if you look at it directly. So I call it the puck effect, like hockey puck. All right. And then I'll show you guys my crazy theory so you guys can tell me if I'm le crazy or le not. I'm going to draw myself some references. Okay. When you grab a cylinder, you again just grab a coffee mug, put it in front of you, go up and down. You'll see what I mean, or like anything that's cylindrical, and you'll see what I mean. When you have a cylinder right on the horizon line, and I'm gonna put HL right on the horizon line, in the center, directly in front of your line of sight, the cylinder is gonna look more like a square. You know it's a cylinder, and maybe you have some lighting that indicates that this is curving. But if you actually look at the core shape, it looks like a puck. Okay, it just looks square. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna put some light source right here because that's how my brain rolls. Okay, now the second I push this item up or above the horizon line, I'm going to use these two far ends, and I'm going to draw an oval. All right. Now, the further away you go from the horizontal line, you have so now you start getting into something where you have the foreground and then you have the background. So you have the foreground curve and then you have the background curve. So I'm going to use let me use this. Oh, there we go. I got a little cup here. Okay. So right here, we're looking at this 3D printed cup. So right here, when you look at this kind of gives me this tells me that this has mass. It's got some depth to it. So right now, when our item is directly in front of us, you're gonna see. I'm not sure if you can see, it's kind of more squarish. The second we push past a certain point, you can see it right here. If this is the center line here, as we push up, this line right here starts curving upwards. Okay, and this one starts pushing downwards. So this one's a push, and the further away we get from the center point, look how much aggressive that line becomes. So right here, so this will look more like a flat oval at this point, and then if I go a little bit further up, you'll be exposed more to that bottom of that cylinder, the line becomes more aggressive. So if you go above, I call it the frowny face. If you go below, I call it the smiley face. But that's just me, because I'm silly that way. See? Because the front looks like a frown. I know, it's silly, but it works for me. Okay, so now we're going to repeat this going below. Okay, I'm going to start by simply creating an oval. Right here, just a flat oval. And then I'm going to mimic this line a little bit further down. And I think the closest thing I can think of, so you can kind of replicate some of this, is like maybe a can of tuna. You have a can of tuna around your house. And again, see right here, it's thinner because it's the closest one to the horizon line. And then right here, this starts curving downward as we push it down. So the foreground right here starts curving downward. And the further away we go from that horizon line, the more aggressive that item looks. Don't worry about the shading. We haven't gone into that yet. It's just habit at this point. Okay, so there's that. Now, what you got to keep in mind is in this point, so here's how you have to look at it. Right here, we're looking at this curvature and it's completely going across. As we push it up, it starts curving. And then as we go further up, it really curves up. It becomes more aggressive. So see, this is where a smiley face. Think of the Amazon smile. See? The Amazon smile logo. Further up you go, the more aggressive this becomes. And there we go. So that kind of gives you that. And I'm just mostly focusing on the foreground curvature right here. Now let's go ahead and now let's look at it on the horizon line because it has a similar effect if you're on the horizon line. Okay, so if we're looking at our item vertically, and it's the same thing. So you have horizontal, like smack in the middle, obviously the horizon line, and then you have the middle of your stage. Depending on what your item is, compared to that center, is going to behave differently. So the further we go from that center point, the more aggressive it's going to be seen. So a lot of it's pretty much repeating. So this right here, I'm going to put the vanishing spot there. Vanishing point. I can English, I swear. I can English. My goodness. Ooh, boo, boo, boo. Man, I'm hungry. I just did a nice workout, so I might go make myself some chicken after this. Okay. So let's go ahead and push this out. So we're going to do a thin oval. We're going to try to replicate that curve here because we know the further away we get from the center. So right here, see, there's the center. And as I move further away from the camera, we're getting exposed to the lower plane of this cup. And then the further I go away, the more of it is exposed to that cup. My God, everything's just beeping and booping in the background. My apologies for that. I tend to shut everything off, but you know. Beeping and booping. Beep-a-da boopity. Beep-a-da boopity beep-a-da beep. So I just shut that tab off. Alright, and let's do that again. Okay, right here. Start with an oval. The further away I get from it, the more aggressive the curvature becomes. And you could try to, like I said, this is just a quick example. You could try to draw it, draw the little planes like we did before. That's totally fine. But right now, I just kind of want to discuss this a little bit better. So, center, vertical, horizontal line. So this is the midpoint right here. The further away we get from the center, the more aggressive the curved line will become. So here in the center, straight down as we move further away, it's going to start curving more aggressively. All right. So how does that come in handy? Well, if I'm drawing like a forearm, So you're going to use a lot of basic shapes when you draw an anatomy, especially to just kind of get the basics on there. They're holding a sword. Okay, most of your forearms are pretty much cylinders, so on and so forth. So learning these basic shapes are very, very, very important. All right, so let's go ahead and continue to build up from here. All right, so let's go ahead and draw a cylinder in 1 point perspective. I'm going to set this to the side, and a lot of this is going to seem very familiar. Now, the difference is, unlike before where we're just looking for a solid object, this time around we're actually going to find pretty much the rest of the plane. So let's go ahead and start with a line. Make this a 6-inch line, and it will make sense here. I know sometimes when I speak I make no sense, but then when I explain to people, like, oh, that does make sense, man. Yeah. So let's start with the horizon line, vanishing point A. Okay, so that gives me that. So first we're gonna build our reference area, as we just spoke about it here. When you're dealing with a cylinder, you're pretty much dealing with a box, except that you're shaping the edges right here. This is a lot of dead material or dead space. That's pretty much what that is. So let's start by finding our box. So per usual, 1 point perspective, and you should be very familiar with this at this point. I'm just gonna make it 1 inch high. Okay, so vanishing point A, point reference 1, reference 2, and this goes back to the 1 point perspective chapter. And let's find my perspective lines. Okay, so before we used to measure out about 3/4 of an inch, but in this case I want to make a cylinder. So I want to go ahead and make this elongated. So I'm actually going to measure the full inch here. Oh, yep, full inch. Wait. Make sure I'm not losing my thought. No. Wait. Ignore me. I need to find the rest of the box first. Aha! I've caught myself. Sorry, guys. I had again, brain fried. At least I didn't make it too far in. So we're going to find, remember, anything going vertical and horizontal are not affected on 1 point, but anything at an angle is. So let's go ahead and find our front plane. My brain glitched a little bit. It happens. Okay, so you got reference point 1, 2. Now we find 3 and 4 by discovering the rest of the plane. And then we're going to go ahead and use that vanishing point. So right now we're literally discovering, if you think of a cube, the cube has 6 planes on it. So right now, most of what we've been finding is the cubes are in the foreground. But for this one, we're also going to find all the planes in the box. So it's going to look a little crazy, and that is okay. So we already went to reference point 1. From there, we drew a cross. We found this is 1 inch. We found a reference point 3 and 4. Let's use that vanishing point and then go ahead, cut across. Whee! Boop-a-doop-boo. There we go. A. Okay, so that gives me that. Now from here, holy frijoles, my brain fried. Let's go ahead and then measure back 1 inch. That will give me the rectangle that I want. I'm just going to do it on both sides. And it should align, because remember, anything vertical and horizontal are not affected. Me and my scribbles up here. Let me define that a little bit. And that would give me this plane right here. Now remember, anything going vertical and horizontal are not affected, so I'm simply going to go ahead and I'm going to discover that back plane. And this is the perspective line that is linking to reference point number 2. And then we're going to go right here. We're going to go to here to here. Again, connect the line that is you're using for reference point 3 and for reference point 1 to discover that plane, and let's go ahead and close it out. Okay, so we've pretty much discovered pretty much what we've done right here. This is what we found. We immediately discovered one, which is the front plane. Then in this case, we discovered the second plane right here. We're not being exposed at all to the top plane, but then we're also discovering the rest of the planes, but from the center of the box. And it'll make sense here in a second. Um, okay, with that, let's go ahead and now repeat what we did here, but we're going to do it in both of these boxes. So we're gonna, you can either measure it out, you could go ahead and eyeball it. That's fine. Try to find the halfway point. I try to measure it if I can. Okay. Then we're gonna repeat this. So that gives me front cylinder, back cylinder. Okay, so now we have, if we go back to our image here, the anatomy of a cylinder, we have found the end caps, but now we want to find the body. That's pretty much what we're doing right here. So we found the end caps. Now, keep in mind when you're dealing with a cylinder, give me a second. Let me see if I have toilet roll real quick. Bah. Let me see. I should have a toilet roll somewhere in here. I always keep one just in case for plant growing. Let me see. Do I have one? I don't seem to have one. Okay, that's okay. I have a cleaning thing. Aha, there we go. I found it. Okay. So let's use my my duster cleaner can. Okay, I'm gonna pull this back a little bit. Let me take this up. Okay, when you're looking at an item that is 3/4 or pretty much a cylinder, let me go ahead and do that, where it's a cylinder, what you notice is that when we're drawing across, if we were to find the top and bottom of this, all right, it's doesn't stop quite at the center, okay? So if this is the center of these circles, pretty much I'm trying to accompany it, notice where the line is. It's more back here because this is a curved surface. So if you stop it directly in the center, it doesn't give you the visual, it doesn't give you the visual information telling you that it is a curved surface. So let me show you. Let me put this away. Let me put the little stick figure or the little stick back, otherwise I'll never find it. So by default, most people want to do this. They pretty much go dot to dot, and there's nothing wrong with that when you start. But in actuality, you kind of just want to go just a little bit off it. Okay, so see, it's not quite in the center, it's just slightly off. And then now I can go ahead and I can shade this. Like I said, we'll get into shading, but keep in mind that as you are drawing these objects, you need to keep in mind the curvature of the item. So in this case, I understand that this is a curved surface, so if I'm doing some shading, I'm going to curve up. If you just simply do a straight line, it doesn't work. Okay, so that gives it like a nice curvature. All right, so crazy so far, not too bad, kind of, sort of, maybe. Did I lose anybody? I'm pretty sure I did. Like I said, just this is one of those where you kind of want to go in, just one by one, and how do you say, just take your time with this. Now, for the sake of sanity, because there is an exercise I want you to try, and I hope you're not throwing your drawings away as you have gone through. I want to go back to this one. Okay, so I'm going to recycle this exercise right here. So this is the 1 point perspective. Okay, I am going to clear some of this out. And I want to show you guys how similar these items are. You don't have to follow along, but you can reconstruct this page if you want to for your project as an exercise. But for most part, you kind of want to start with what I have going on right here. You just pretty much draw your squares. The only difference is you want to discover the back planes. So right here, you have this right here. Anything going vertical and horizontal is not affected. So you see what I'm doing right there? In this case, I'm just going to eyeball this a little bit. So I'm going to use the back planes. And if you guys want me to go back and teach you how to find all 6 planes, let me know. I just figured for the sake of sanity, uh, we'll be here all day if I just kind of try to show you how to find those. Okay. But you can see what I'm doing here. You know, anything vertical, horizontal, I'm using the vanishing points. Okay, this is a single plane, so I'm not even going to bother with that. So we'll start with that. But let's find the rest of these boxes. Gives me that. I said, if you want me to show you how to find all 6 planes, pretty much it's the same thing, but the difference is instead of just locking, so we were exposed to the front 3 planes, we just have to find the last one, and because, you know, you already have the information, you just simply have to go, okay, if this is my point here, and this is my point here, anything going vertical, not affected, anything going horizontal, not affected, and that should give you that point, and it should end up within the perspective line right there. That's pretty much all that is. Okay, so this is pretty much what I want to start with. So this is the 1 point perspective we used in the past, and then what I want to do is show you guys how to now apply this to 1 point perspective but with cylinders. I'm going to switch colors here. Let me see if I have my comic book pencils. I kind of like this a little bit better than using my Prismacolors. Yep, there is. I have an art closet nearby. That's where I keep all my art supplies. Um, so I have 2 kinds of Prismacolors. At some point, I want to make a video about art supplies. So you got the regular Prismacolor pencils. These are very old. These are done by a Barrel. They don't even make them anymore. Now they're done by another company. See, Prismacolor. Premieres. These are very, this is how you know you got really old Prismacolors, but we'll talk about that the other day. So you have the ones that you mostly use for coloring, and then you have ones where you see like the non-photo blue. This is used for like drawing comics. This is the base. And then they have different versions of that. And these come with an eraser. I normally don't erase very much, but the one that I like to use a lot is indigo blue. If you see any of my comic book stuff, I'm not sure if you guys seen any of my videos for Alien Writer, which are on this channel. They're a couple years old, but that's normally what I tend to draw of the indigo blue. Okay, so let's go ahead right here. It's like the same way we found these. We're going to start by first dividing those squares into planes. So we divide them into quarters, so it gives us the furthest point, and then we're going to find the rest of the circle. So this all builds on each other. I know it sounds crazy, but it built on each other. So this is purple. Yeah, this is violet. Hold on. Wap, wap, wap. Give me indigo blue. Okay, there we go. That's brown. Jesus, I can't see. I can't see for beans today. You blue. Okay, that's blue. For Pete's sake. Okay, we're gonna start by gently finding those quarters. Then back here, again, same thing, divided by 4. There's our circle. Now this one's the easiest. If it's a single plane, so if we have a cylinder and our camera is directly in front of it, we're simply going to be staring at a single plane. So only one of the caps are exposed. Alright, so that's one. Now right up here, we found our front plane. So the front plane you can go a little harder on your line, but the back plane you want to go easy on that. So here's our connecting points. So I'm going to draw the curvature because we're only going to see the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and go from those further points and then seal it off there. Okay, and let's rinse and repeat. Curve, 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 curve. And it's okay if you don't have this pencil. This is I just like to bring this out so that way you guys can see it pops up what I'm actually doing. This is just for your benefit. So right here, if here's the halfway point, see, it's like in the center. That doesn't make sense. You kind of have to go just a little bit higher. And now that gives me the information mentally that this is a curved surface. And it continues up to this edge right here. Okay, so right here, now just like before, we have 2 planes. 1 plane, because it's shifted over to the right, 3 planes, even though it's a circular surface. Okay, now because this is on anything that is on the center, center north, south, center left, right, you're going to be exposed to 2 planes. And we talked about this on the 1 point perspective lesson. The one in the back, you want it to be a little lighter. Because again, we're pretending that this is a solid shape. That gives me that. Of course you broke. Let me try another. There we go. Let's try this again. And after a while, you won't even need these anymore. Your brain, especially as you practice, you can kind of eyeball it. Unless you're trying to be like very precise. But you can see I keep doing the same technique. Okay, dividing this into quarters. Going from curve to curve. The same thing in the back, a little lighter. Okay, there's that right there. You can tell I'm getting sloppy because I'm getting tired of doing this exercise. It can be tiresome, like I said. This is like the broccoli of the art world, but it's really important, especially if you want to get into like concept art, You have to understand mass and volume. You have to learn from real life um, before you can make something that doesn't exist. And this is how you train your mind to look into that and do that. There we go. So that's pretty much your cylinder coming at you at one point perspective, literally from every single angle. And it's pretty much grabbing what we already learned before, and now we're building upon those lessons that we have learned before. So let's go ahead and go into this one more time. But now I want to go ahead and talk about 2 point perspective. Let me see. Actually, no. I think this is a good stopping point for today. Um, we can go ahead and try to do a 2 point perspective. Let me see what I want to do. My brain is a little tired today. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, so let's quickly do a 2 point perspective. Let me get a fresh sheet of paper. Do do do. Where are you? Aha. Paper has been acquired. Da 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 da. Okay, now I lost my main pencil. My man. Okay, so let's start like we normally do. Now for this one, I'm gonna quickly kind of walk you through it. So if you want to watch, it's perfectly fine. So pretty much it's similar to what we've done before. So you have a horizon line. Okay, you have vanishing point A and B. Okay. Now, just like we did before, you need to find a reference point or a starting point. Now, we're in 2 point perspective, so anything going vertical, not affected. Anything going horizontal or an angle, it is affected. So you got to keep that in mind. But we need to have a starting point. So 1, 2, and I'm gonna go in a little bit closer so you all can see what I'm doing. Okay. A. And in this case, I really want to try to keep track of what I'm doing. A, B. Okay, so that gives me that. Now this time around it's a little different. I want to try to find something that's a little bit more elongated. In this case, I want to keep the front perfectly, like I want to keep it the same. So what I'm going to do is I want to use this intersection here and draw down. So this will become 3, 4. But I want to make a rectangle. That's why I'm just kind of changing this up a little bit. So A. And then what I want to do, I'm just really going to push this out. So I'm going to do, instead of an inch, I'm going to do an inch and a half. And again, this is just for the exercise. Okay, so this would give me the reference point 5, 6. Then we're going to use B to intercept. Okay, so what this does is, I have found, if I'm in my box and it's above me, I have found the front plate, excuse me, the front uh, face, side face, and bottom face. But I also need to find the other sides of this box. Okay, so from here, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I drew that upside down. My dyslexic butt. My apologies. Okay, now from here we need to find this back plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use reference point 5, and I'm going to use vanishing point B to discover that back plane. As you can see right around here, this now gives me 7, and then kind of sort of 8. It's a little off, but that is okay. 7 and 8. And then these right here kind of lined up with each other. So let's go ahead and find this all the planes on this cube. And sometimes these lines will overlap with each other. That's okay. I know it tends to throw me off too, so don't feel bad. Okay, so now we have our box. Now let's go ahead and find our circle. So right here, like I said, I'm eyeballing the halfway point. Now in this case, because it's a 2-point perspective, I'm going to be using my vanishing point as my marker for anything going at an angle. And I'm going to repeat that over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to draw my circle. Is that black? No, I want to black, like my indigo blue. Indigo blue is like my go-to. I don't know why, it relaxes me when I draw. Everybody's got their thing. I'd like to really sketch in color. It's also really hard to erase. So if you've made a mistake, you own that mistake. So you learn how not to kind of pre-visualize, and we'll talk about previs later. You learn how to kind of pre-visualize what you want to do before you draw anything down. So from here we have our two back planes. Using the vanishing point. There we go. So it gives me the back there. Back here. Now I can darken these lines. And sometimes it's gonna look a little off, but and that's the worst part about perspective. Sometimes things look off. You're like, that ain't right, that ain't right, and then you measure, you're like, oh no, that's right. That is very right. Okay, for the sake of this, I'm gonna make this a hollow tube, like a toilet paper roll. Yeah, so if you have basic shapes around the house, especially when you're learning, make yourself like a box of basic shapes you can use for references. Like I normally like to keep a ball, or like a cylinder, or just kind of certain things. So there's some stuff that you kind of have to kind of really look at it to kind of go through it in your head, so that way it makes sense. And by having the visual right in front of you, it does help a lot. Okay, so we got this right here. All right, now let's go ahead and do something even crazier. So before I move forward, so here we have a cylinder on 2-point perspective above the horizon line, which means we can see our belly. Now let's go ahead and do something a little bit, some more crazy shenanigans. Shenanigans. Okay, this time instead of having our item laying flat, I want to be standing straight up and down. And have you ever drawn, like, have you ever seen any images? I'm going to go back to Superman, where they might be in the farm and there's like a corn silo and stuff like that. That might be like a good point of reference. Or anything that has a circular type building. So per usual, anything vertical not affected, I need a starting point. So 1, 2. You can always start with your basic planes first. B, B. Oops, sorry if you hear my tummy rumbling. I am very hungry. Very hungry. Okay, so we got that. From there, I want to create a rectangle. Actually, no, for this one, I'm just gonna keep it the same all the way across because I just want to create a square. And I'm sorry if I seem to be kind of bouncing all over the place. So I'm going to do 1 inch above sides and just experiment with this, guys. I'm just trying to build some quick exercises for you guys so you guys can see and get an idea how you can like implement this. This is not the know all buy all. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes you could go whichever way you want. Just have your reference points. Okay, so let's discover our box. A, A, B, oh, bye. So we look at this and it looks like a hot mess, but let's go ahead and carefully tread to this. So we have 1, 2. This is the front plane. That's the front plane. And then so 1, 2, 5, 6. Here's another side plane right there. 1, 3, 5. That gives me 3 points right here. We have discovered a new point. 7. And then back here, we have seemed to discovered 8. And we know anything going vertical is not affected. So we have discovered our back planes and front planes. Okay, so from here, we're going to go ahead and do what we've done before. Now, because this is 2-point perspective, and so this is going to be a cylinder standing up versus this one, which is a cylinder laying down. So anything vertical and horizontal not affected, but anything going horizontal or at an angle, it is. So in this case, this is going to be affected quite a bit. So we're going to use the vanishing points to try to find that center point on both sides. And this stuff doesn't make sense, that's fine. Just leave it in the comments. I always looking into ways to improve how I explain things to people. I don't things that kind of make sense to me might not make to somebody else. So I have to find. So I was a college instructor for almost a decade, actually well over a decade now that I think about it. And I always had to find new ways to explain things to folks because some people would get one technique, other people would not get a different technique. So I always try to find different ways to explain myself to make sure that I'm being clear. Okay, so here we have right here and trying to come up. This is based on the 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. They're broken up into quarters. I'm pretty much going right here. I am acknowledging that there is some dead space around it. Once I have that, then I'm simply just drawing my cylinder and curve. Wee. My goodness. There we go. So, now I'm done. So just a quick recap. Pretty much the 1 2 point perspective, pretty much what we talked about. Those principles and the principles pretty much carry over. You have the basic foundational primal shapes, and then as you're trying to build something more three-dimensional, you're trying to add like horizon line, vanishing points, and all that stuff. Keep in mind that as you continue, depending on where your item is on the stage, it's going to be affected by how you view it. If you are looking at something directly in front of you, it's going to look different than when you look up or when you look down. So it is very important to keep track of where your item is in relation to your environment because it will affect how it looks. Just like we've done before, pretty much we went ahead and we grabbed the 1 point perspective that we have learned, but this time we were implementing a third element, which is a spherical surface. So we drew the item in 1 point perspective. Like I said, you can kind of go back to the video and just go through that. And then right here, we pretty much replicated the same thing, but now we're doing it in 2 point perspective. And again, guys, if you have any questions or opinions, I'll do the best to answer them. I'm still getting adjusted to the YouTube platform. If you have any suggestions or better theories, I would love to look into those. I will forever be a student of the world, so I'm not one of those people who's like, no, I know everything. No, nobody knows everything. They're full of baloney. But I'm one of those people that I'm very humble, and if you have a better way to explain this, I welcome it. That's totally fine. But anyway, guys, until next time, this is pretty much it for today, and then I'm hoping to get more into more complex shapes next time, just a little bit more complicated stuff, especially dealing with depth perception and all that stuff, with just seeing objects closer from further than you. But for today, I am all done. Please like and subscribe if you like this type of content. Again, please feel free to give feedback at the bottom. I always try to find ways to improve this channel. And y'all take care, and until next time, peace.